So today we're here to celebrate the life of and to mourn the loss of the man known as Mr. Riverside, Daniel Hantman. Lawyer fighting valiantly for the most vulnerable, community booster and dedicated volunteer, loving longtime partner to Marcia. Dan, sporting his very familiar sombrero, was a smiling, warm, welcoming presence in Riverside. Thank you for being here today to support the family and to celebrate this very special man. I'm Rabbi Singer, and this is Cantor Sirotnik and his wife, Barbara Sirotnik. Mourning is the price that we pay to have the courage to love another person. Even in grief, we know that the wonder of human life is too complex and too magnificent to be memorialized in endless pain. The gifts of spirit that our loved ones have given us cannot be measured or weighed, nor can they be lost or tarnished with the length of time. Even in our darkest hours, we know that some of their light and their warmth will always be with us, bringing comfort and courage and, in the fullness of time, healing and peace. If you know Psalm 23, please feel free to join me. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He guideth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. Yea, though I walk in the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before mine enemies. My cup overflows. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. You know, there have been a number of different sort of more modern translations, but I think the old King James really captures the beauty of that psalm, which is now going to be sung in Hebrew.
Adonai roi velo exar pinot zeya bitseni alme menuchot yena nafshi yishovesh yanecheni v'magalei tzedek leman shemo. Gam gielech begeit samavet lo irara ita imadi shivtecha umishantecha hema yerachamuni taroch lefanai shulchan neged etzorerai deshanta v'Hashem en roshi kosi revaya. Achatov achesed yirtefuni kol yemei chayai. Bishavti bevei Adonai leorech yamin.
And the child asked, "Tell me of life." And the sage answered, "Life, my child, is a mystery. We do not ask to be born, nor do we even understand the meaning of birth, of creation. We grow and we experience life, life's pleasures and life's pains. We love, and slowly, oh so slowly, we come to realize that we have become that which we are. At that moment, we humble ourselves before the mystery of life and quietly say, though I knew not, I have been granted the most precious gift of all, the gift of life." And the child asked, "Tell me of death." And the sage answered, "Death, my child, is a mystery. It is inevitable. It is the inevitable return of the gift of life, the gift which came free to us. We live as the trustee of that mysterious being, of that unexplainable becoming. Yes, you and I are but the trustees of life. We nurture it, we delight in it, we give of it to others. And at the appointed time, we sadly, yet with pride, return it from whence it came. The beauty, my child, is that what we are, what we have become, remains long after the gift has been returned. It remains as a precious keepsake with our loved ones who live on. We all love Dan very much, and Dan loved you, and Dan loved some of our liturgy in the Jewish tradition, and one of his favorite pieces was Ahavat Olam, which means eternal love. And it's a prayer about the fact that God loves us so much that God gave us Torah, which is our sort of blueprint for leading an ethical and moral life, which certainly Dan did.
Ahavat olam Beit Yisrael Ha'ahavta Torah u'mitzvot, chukim u'mishpatim, otanu lemadeta. Halakein Adonai Eloheinu b'shochabeinu u'kumeinu nasiach b'chukecha v'nisamach b'divrei Toratecha u'b'mitzvotecha l'olam va'ed ki hem chayenu Be'orech yameinu Uvahem nege yomam balayla Nege yomam balayla בבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים. ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל. אוהב עמו ישראל.
This is a poem by Alden Solovey called Blessings Now a River. And one day you will be gone. Simple as that, gone. A blank space, the flow of life filling the spot where you once were. Or could it be that the love once held within you will finally be free? That your old container, now broken, will no longer bind you? That your blessings, now a river, will flow freely? That your sacred spirit will fill the universe? And on that day, you will be here, more than ever. Simple as that. Here, unbounded, as unimaginable as infinity, as radiant as light, a holy space most present in this sacred place, here where hearts dwell. Dan was a member of the Sudhavasa Buddhist Meditation Center, and Ajahn is going to lead a Buddhist prayer for him.
For Buddhist ceremony, I would like to invite who like to make a merit for the Mr. Hantman. Repeat after me. Imina sakarena Puttang apipu chayama Arahang samma samputto bhagava Puttang bhagavantang abhivademi Imina sakarena Dhammang apipu chayami Sawakhato bhagavata dhammo Dhammang namassami Imina sakarena Dhammang apipu chayami Su Sanghang apipu chayamiสุปฏิปันโนภควโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามิ นะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะพุทธังสรณังคัจฉามิธัมมังสรณังคัจฉามิสังฆังสรณังคัจฉามิดุติยัมปิพุทธังสรณังคัจฉามิดุติยัมปิธัมมังสรณังคัจฉามิดุติยัมปิสังฆังสรณังคัจฉามิตติยัมปิบุตทังสรณังคัจฉามิตติยัมปิธัมมังสรณังคัจฉามิตติยัมปิสังฆังสรณังคัจฉามิปานาติปาตาเวระมณีสิกขาปดังสมาดิยามิอดินนาดานาเวระมณีสิกขาปดังสมาดิยามิกาเมสุมิจฉาจาราเวระมณีสิกขาปดังสมาดิยามิมุสาวาดาเวระมณีสิกขาปดังสมาดิยามิสุราเมรยมัจจะปมาดฐานาเวระมณีสิกขาปดังสมาดิยามิอิมานิปัญจสิกขาปดานิสีเลนะสุขติงยันติสีเลนะโภกสัมปดาสีเลนะนิบุติงยันติตัสสมาสีลังวิโสดะเยnext the monk from the Sudawasa Buddhist Meditation Center would like to chanting for Mr. Hantmanนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะกุศลธรรมาอกุศลธรรมาอัมพยากัตธรรมาสุขายเวทนายสัมปยุนตาธรรมทุงคายเวทนายสัมปยุนตาธรรมอทุงคมสุขายเวทนายสัมปยุนตาธรรมวิปากาธรรมาวิปากธรรมธรรมาเนววิปากนวิปกธรรมธรรมาอุปาทินนุปาทานิยธรรมาอนุปาทินนุปานิยธรรมาอนุปาทินนานุปาทานิยธรรมาสังกิเลนทสังกิลสิกาธรรมาสังกิเลนทสังกิเลสิกาธรรมอสังกิเลนทาสังกิเลสิกาธรร มมาสวิตังกสวิจาราธรรมาอวิตังกวิจารมันธรรมาอวิตังกาวิจาราธรรมาปิติสหคตาธรรมาสุขสหคตาธรรมอุเปกขาสหคตาธรรมาทานสเนนะปะหาตามภาธรรมาภาวนายปะตามภาธรรมาเนวทานสเนนันภาวนายปะหาตามภาธรรมาทานสเนนะปะหาตามภาเหตุกาธรรมภาวนายปะหาตามภาเหตุกาธรรมเนวทานสเนนันภาวนายปะหาตามภาเหตุกาธรรมอาจยคามิโนธรรมาอปัจจยคามิโนธรรมาเนวาจยคามิโนนาปัจจยคาธรรมาเสกขาธรรมาอเสกขาธรรมาเนวเสกขานาเสกขาปรินตาธรรมามหังคตาธรรมาอัปปมานาธรรมาปรินตารัมมนาธรรมมหังคตารัมมนาธรรมาอัปปมานารัมมนาธรรมาหีนาธรรมมัญชิมาธรรมาปณีตาธรรมามินธรรมาสัมมันตนิยตาธรรมาอนิยตาธรรมมังคารัมมนาธรรมามังคเหตุกาธรรมามังคาทิปติโนธรรมาอุปันนาธรรมอนุปันนาธรรมาอุปาทิโนธรรมาตาธรรมาอนาคตาธรรมาปัญจุปันนาธรรมาอติตารัมมนาธรรมาอนาคตารัมมนาธรรมปัจจุปันนารัมมนาธรรมาอาจันตาธรรมาพหิทธาธรรมาอัญชันตภัยทาธรรมาอัญชันตารัมมนาธรรมพหิทธารัมมนาธรรมาตาพหิทธารัมมนาธรรมาสนิทานสนสาปฏิคาธรรมอนิทานสนสามปฏิคาธรรมาอนิทานสนาปฏิคาธรรมา And next for the offering the robe for the monk. Next one, the monk from the Sudavasa Buddhist Meditation Center would like to uh, blessing to everyone. ยะถาวาริวหาปุราปริปุเรนติสาคารังเอวะเมวะอิโตทินังเปตานังอุปกปปติอิชิตังปฏิตังตุมหังคิปะเมวะสมิจจตุสัพเพปุเรนตุสังกปาจันโทปนรสโสยะถามหนิโชติรสโสยะถาวิวันชันตุสัมภโรโควินันสตุมาเตภวันวันตรายโยสุขีทียุโกภวะอภิวาทนาสีเลียนสนินจังวุนทาปจายินจันตารโอธรรมาวันทันติอายุวันโนสุขังพระลังอัฏฐาสิเมอากาสิเมยาติมินตาสกขาจัมเปตานังทาคินังทานชาปุมเพกตมนุนสรังนหิรุณนังโสโกวายาวันยาปริเทวนานาตังเปตานามันทายะเอตีนทันติยาตโยอายัญจะโคทางคินาทินนาสังฆามิสุปฏินทิทีคารตังหิตายันสัทธานโสอุปกรรมปฏิโสยติธรรมจะยังนิทานสิโตเปตานปูชาจักตาอุราลาภลันจะพิงคูนำปะทินนางตุมเหหิปุญญังปสุตังอนาปการตีมภวตุขลังราคันตุสามพระเทวตาสามพระพุทธานุภาเวนัสทธาโสทีภวันตุเตภวตุสามพมรักขันธุสามพเทวตาสัพพธรรมานุภาเวนัสทธาโสทีภวันตุเตภวตุสามพมังรักขันธุสามพเทวตาสามพสังฆานุภาเวนัสทธาโสทีภวันตุเต Thank you everyone.
Thank you very much. This is a poem by Mary Oliver. When death comes like the hungry bear in autumn, when death comes and takes all the bright coins from his purse to buy me and snaps the purse shut, when death comes like the measles pox, when death comes like an iceberg between the shoulder blades, I want to step through the door full of curiosity, wondering what it is going to be like, that cottage of darkness. And therefore, I look upon everything as a brotherhood and a sisterhood. And I look upon time as no more than an idea, and I consider eternity as another possibility. And I think of each life as a flower, as common as a field daisy, and as singular. And each name a comfortable music in the mouth, tending, as all music does, toward silence. And each body a lion of courage, and something precious to the earth. When it's over, I want to say, all my life, I was a bride married to amazement. I was a bridegroom taking the world into my arms. When it's over, I don't want to wonder if I've made my life something particular and real. I don't want to find myself sighing and frightened or full of argument. I don't want to end up simply having visited this world. Certainly, Dan Hantman is not someone who just visited this world. He was involved in so many different organizations and activities. One of his most important ones was being involved with La Sierra, and Larry Garrity, Dr. Larry Garrity, is going to offer a eulogy.
I want to begin by acknowledging the assistance of Marcia Gilman and Colette Lee in the preparation of this eulogy. Our friend, Daniel Hantman, a man of great intelligence, purpose, and ethical values, was born to Jacob and Marcia Hantman in Los Angeles on January 19, 1942, and passed to his rest here in Riverside at the Kaiser Hospital on Valentine's Day, February 14, 2024, leaving behind the love of his life, Marcia Gilman. He was predeceased by his brother Joseph, but leaves to mourn his brother David and sister Elizabeth Rudzinski. As most of us know, Dan Hantman has been advocating for serious and disabled individuals for over 40 years. He chose a line of work that fit with his personal commitment to assist the most vulnerable in our society. He traced his passion for helping others to his strong family. From early childhood, Dan wanted to be an attorney. He fondly recalls the seeds of the profession being planted when his father took him to observe court proceedings as a young child. To reach his goal, Dan attended UCLA for his first 3 years of his undergraduate education and then transferred to UC Berkeley for his final year, majoring in political science. Before Dan entered the challenging world of law school, he decided to obtain some real-life experience by spending 2 years, 1963 to 1965, as a Peace Corps volunteer in Thailand. But he remained there another several years until 1971, supervising the establishment of English language schools throughout the country. He learned to speak Thai fluently and gained a respect for Buddhism that lasted his whole life. Dan came back to Southern California and attended the University of San Fernando Valley College of Law. After his graduation in 1976, retired Judge Ronald Taylor, who was then director of Inland County's Legal Services, hired him, and he's lived in Riverside ever since. At ICLS, he specialized in elder law. And in 1984, Dan went into the private sector with a general civil practice. Gradually, his practice evolved into the specialty of representing clients who have been denied benefits from the Social Security Administration. Because Dan wanted to preserve and protect the unique qualities of this region against adverse changes and promote responsible and responsive government, many of you know that he ran to represent the new 43rd Congressional District here in western Riverside County in 1992. His top priorities were education, healthcare, the economy, crime and law enforcement, and the environment. Though he lost the race, Dan has always found time to give something back to his community. He served on the Riverside County Bar Association Board of Directors, including a term as president of the RCBA. In 2005, Dan was honored by the Riverside Opportunity Center with the Golden Legal Eagle Award for his outstanding contributions to the legal community. And in 2012, he was awarded the E. Aurora Hughes Meritorious Award for service. In addition to a rewarding law career, Dan also became very involved with the local San Gorgonio chapter of the Sierra Club, where he became active in their conservation and environmental activities. And he enjoyed being a member here of Temple Beth El, which hosts us today. Dan has also been very active in the Greater Riverside community. For instance, he has been a board member of the Greater Riverside Chambers of Commerce and served as the Downtown Division President from 1995 to 1996. As we have heard, he was the Chamber's official wayfinder, human directional signal for most events. And we all remember Dan out front at many of the Chamber programs, as we've heard, a sombrero on his head to shade himself from the sun, and a Chamber of Commerce sign in his hand so that you know you were going to the right place. helping to direct members to the right location and ensuring that they found the correct parking and entrance. And at each Good Morning Riverside, Dan prepared his table for chamber attendees, setting out orange juice well before the guests arrived. He volunteered at the Festival of Lights Committee, and he was an avid volunteer for Keep Riverside Clean and Beautiful. Dan and his longtime companion, Marcia Gilman, adopted a stretch of Central Avenue in the Canyon Crest area and strived to keep it clean of litter. Dan was a 10-year member of the Coalition for Common Ground, which is an organization that promotes diversity here in the Inland Empire. He was on the Mission Inn Foundation and was past chair of the Mission Inn Docent Council. And as a member of that group, Dan used to give tours of the Mission Inn 4 times a month. He also served on the International Relations Council of Riverside and the World Affairs Council. A great believer in higher education, he was part of the community group that advocated for UCR's medical school, even providing financial support to get it started when the state temporarily backed out on its commitment. Since its founding, Dan served on the La Sierra University Foundation Board and the advisory committee of La Sierra's Center for Near Eastern Archaeology, for which he, along with Marcia, were recently honored with an award. Dr. Doug Clark, the director of that center, is in Jordan right now, but he's watching on Zoom. Dan even volunteered on one of our digs in Jordan. He was thrilled to uncover a large silver coin minted by Alexander the Great, and he loved to recount his experience to whoever would listen. Other high points in his life included his climbing Mount Kilimanjaro in 2004, all 19,341 feet of it. When he visited India's famous Taj Mahal, he made friends with a humble street sweeper. And in the process, he got his own broom and spent time sweeping with his new friend. In keeping with his adventurous spirit, on Dan's 70th birthday, he went skydiving in Paris. As many of you know, Dan had a host of Thai friends who say that to them, he was never a foreigner. His Thai mother, in a beautiful tribute to him, said Dan understood their way of thinking and their way of living, so easily accommodated himself to their customs. For instance, he often went to the Wat Suddhavasa, the Thai Buddhist meditation center in Harupa Valley, where they claimed him as one of their own, even recently holding a special service there in his honor. And we've been honored here this afternoon to have the monks as participants in our service today. What is most remarkable is that Dan did all these things without ever being asked or seeking recognition. He just showed up, ready to serve his community in any way he could. As his good friend Colette Lees has said, Daniel Hantman made the world shine. His kind demeanor and caring actions and attitudes have inspired all of us in our city, and his impact on humankind has been felt throughout the world. Dan has said that he found living and working in Riverside to be a really rewarding experience for him. And needless to say, we have all benefited from Dan's dedication and commitment to our community. He made our world a better place. And I will always be grateful for his friendship and unmerited support, as so many of you here also feel. Daniel's life partner, Marcia Gilman, cherished him and was his confidant, caregiver, supporter to the end, and to the highest degree. She was his soulmate who was behind the scenes, but made everything work in his life and function flawlessly. She showed me 3 different cards that Dan had made for her, all hand-drawn. And each one said, quote, You are so beautiful. So Dan was a lucky man. There is a Buddhist saying Daniel would want us to ponder at this time. Quote, "Let us be at peace with our bodies and our minds. Let us return to ourselves and become holy ourselves." And I close with a Jewish prayer. In the rising of the sun and in its going down, we remember Dan. In the glowing of the wind and in the chill of winter, we remember Dan. In the opening of buds and in the rebirth of spring, we remember Dan. In the blueness of the sky and in the warmth of summer, we remember Dan. In the rustling of leaves and in the beauty of autumn, we remember Dan. In the beginning of the year and when it ends, we remember Dan. When we are weary and in need of strength, we remember Dan. When we are lost and sick at heart, we remember Dan. When we have joys we yearn to share, we remember Dan. So long as we live, Dan too shall live, for he is now a part of us as we remember him. So Daniel, rest in peace. Even the heavens are weeping today. We will sorely miss you.
I think that really captured Dan. It's beautiful. This is a piece by Maya Angelou called When Great Trees Fall. When great trees fall, rocks on distant hills shudder. Lions hunker down in tall grasses, and even elephants lumber after safety. When great trees fall in forests, small things recoil into silence, their senses eroded beyond fear. When great souls die, the air around us becomes light, rare, sterile. We breathe briefly. Our eyes briefly see with a hurtful clarity. Our memory, suddenly sharpened, examines, gnaws on kind words unsaid, promised walks never taken. Great souls die, and our reality, bound to them, takes leave of us. Our souls, dependent upon their nurture, now shrink, wizened. Our minds, formed and informed by their radiance, fall away. We are not so much maddened as reduced to the unutterable ignorance of dark, cold caves. And when great souls die, after a period, peace blooms, slowly and always irregularly. Space is filled with a kind of soothing electric vibration. Our senses restored, never to be the same, whisper to us, they existed. They existed. We can be and be better, for they existed. Another one of Dan's favorite prayers here at Temple Beth El is the Hashkivenu prayer, which is a prayer that originally was said at bedtime. As people went to sleep, in the medieval period, they weren't sure that they would necessarily wake up the next day. So it's a prayer for rest and peace and waking up. And Cantor Sorotnik and Barbara will sing it.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu
Shalom, Hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim. Ushmot Tzedkeinu Uvoenu L'Chaim U'Shalom Me'ata ve'ad olam.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu L'Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu L'Chaim Hashkivenu Malkeinu L'Chaim.
We're going to open the mic now for anyone who would like to say a few words about Dan. We know there are people here representing a lot of different parts of his life, and so please feel free to come up, or if you don't feel comfortable, that's okay too. But we'll leave the mic open for those who would like to come up and say a few words. They're going to have to identify themselves. Here you go. Can you introduce yourself?
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not good in English, but I will introduce myself and my the order of the monk. We are the monk from Sudavasa Buddhist Meditation Center. We are Buddhist monk. The temple we live, Mr. Daniel, he support us. And today we come for chanting, for pray for him. And my name Thanakorn Rintong. My name Thanakorn. And next one.
And my name Chatri Budmani.
I am Apichat Mongkon Panichayakit.
And yes, please. Would you like to introduce yourself to the guests here?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today is a special day that we come to support the family of Mr. Daniel Hantman. Mr. Daniel and myself know each other more than 20 years. He has supported us in many, many ways. So in the last moment of his death, I be there many times to support him. So he has very meaningful life. What it is by the teaching of our Buddha. The Buddha have teach many principles, like 84,000 principles. But we may classify into three things. First, do not do any evil. Second, doing good. Third, cultivating the mind. Here, Mr. Daniel used his time in his life for helping his family and also helping others. As you may know him, that he always think about others. Whatever he can help others, he would be very fast to help others. Then I would like to share with you with the four principles of our teachings that the giving is the first principle. As we know that Mr. Daniel always give to many people, give his lifetime to help people.
Distinguished visiting fellow in journalism at Hillsdale. Earl Book.
I think someone needs to mute themselves, please. Hey, thank you. Please try to keep on mute.
And second thing, beautiful word. He always talk to people.
Including making spirit.
He always talk to people with very nice words and have very good meaning about that. Thirdly, he always helping others to join his hand and his heart to help others. And fourthly, the balanced lifestyle. He always balance his lifestyle, not too high and not too low. Today, many of us come to participate because we know that Mr. Daniel is a very good person and he going to go to heaven only one way, because when he's still alive, he did do very good for himself, for others. That's the only way to go to heaven. And we come to share our love and understanding to his family, and we will always support his family for the time being. And I do wish for myself and by the Buddha Gem, with you always have really beautiful life and be success in our life. Thank you again very much.
Thank you so much. Tori. It says the host would like me to unmute. Is that, no? Ignore it. Okay, fine, thank you. One of the prayers that we recite at a funeral is El Male Rahamim, where we ask that the soul of the departed rest with God. Cantor, I'm sorry. Did you want to speak? Okay, please come up.
Hello, my name is Manuel Bueno. I lived a couple of houses away from Dan and Marcia, and talked to Dan a few times here and there in all the years. And hearing the eulogy and reading up on him, I realized I missed out on a great opportunity to know a great man, and that's my loss. But it seemingly that a lot of you folks were able to be touched by Dan. And in my thoughts about it, I realized that a lot of us don't realize of who we're in the midst of. And I like to call Dan, he was a George Bailey. He was a George Bailey. Marcia, my condolences. Thank you.
Is George Bing, Jimmy Stewart? Is that who you're? Yeah, it's from It's a Wonderful Life. You'll have to go watch it. Okay, with someone else, I don't want to put people on the spot, but if anyone else wants to come up and speak, or even somebody from Zoom, you are more than welcome. Okay. Anybody? Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Jeff Krause. There's no way I'm going to be able to match what Dr. Garrity so eloquently said, but I've known Dan for about 30 years. And he was a very good friend. They talked about his love of Riverside. They talked about what an ethical man he was. But there are other parts about Dan. I played volleyball with him almost every week for years. And Dan had an angry side. There was one word of profanity that would always come out of his mouth. And that was, Daniel! And he would scream that. Beyond that, nothing. But Dan was the nicest gentleman you'd ever want to meet. One of the favorite things that he liked to do, and it didn't matter where it was, whether it was at Starbucks at Canyon Crest, whether it was somewhere downtown. He even did it at the bottom of the Grand Canyon after hiking all the way down to the bottom of the Grand Canyon. He would set up shop at a chair and want to meet and talk to people. And it would make him happier than anything you'd want to see. And it wasn't lip service, because often I would get a call from Dan, or when I would run into later, he said, you'd never guess the person that I met. You'd never guess that what I found out. And it was a literal joy of meeting people. And, you know, I think that COVID really impacted him, because that was one thing that he was not able to do. But that was one of his great loves, in addition to Riverside, is just meeting people. The other, and it was mentioned briefly, you know, of his great love was for Marcia. And all you need to do is see Dan's email address, which was Dan for Marcia. And in the last probably year or two, Marcia has really had to go through a trial and tribulations with some family issues, including with Dan. But I can confidently say that Dan would have done 10 times as much for Marcia as she did for him. And that was just Dan. And so I know we will miss Dan, the community member, but we will miss Dan, the partner, Dan, the neighbor, Dan, the volleyball player, Dan, the adventurer. We'll miss his Mount Kilimanjaro jacket that he wore all the time. But I just wanted to say those words, and thank you, Marcia.
Everybody just said it all. It was so beautiful. I met Dan maybe 20, 25 years ago. He was a friend to everyone. He was Mr. Riverside. When he would see what's going on, he loved when he met people. That was Dan. And when I told him that my daughter was marrying someone from Thailand, he was excited and he said, "Open your eyes, see what they have to offer. Just don't close them because I know you're a Christian, but they have so much to offer." My daughter has been married 17 years to this wonderful half Thai, half Puerto Rican, and now Mexican. So I opened my eyes. I told Dan. He asked me, "What's going on in your new life?" Because I was off on medical leave. And I said, "Well, husband built me a humble house, and I go in there and I have my meditation, and I spend time with God." He said, "A humble house. That sounds like Marcia. That sounds like my wife." He always had a kind thing to say every time we met him about his beautiful person in his life. I'd meet him maybe once a year, sometimes twice, sometimes 3 times, and it's been a while, but he always asked, "How are you, Miss Mary?" And he meant it sincerely. "How are you?" And I said, "I'm fine, Mr. Riverside. Thank you for asking." One of the times he said, and I wrote it down, it must have been in 2017 or 20, I don't know, and COVID did shut him down. And he said, "People with a beautiful smile will always make my day. You just keep on smiling, Miss Mary, and you finish the day." That was Dan. Thank you, guys.
Let's see. Deb has her hand up. Please join us, Deb. Go ahead.
Hi, thank you, everybody. I'm so sorry I can't be with you. I'm one of Dan's many cousins, and he actually lived with our family when he was making use of his scholarship to go to UCLA. So I consider him half a brother. I will say that his mother, who is also named Marcia, was responsible for those of us cousins who were pushed into health foods in the 1950s, and I consider her absolutely responsible for the strong health, calmness, tall height, and resiliency of all of us compared to our normal friends. I'll also say most meaningfully, Dan is the most devout person I've known, in that my whole life knowing him, he always lived his values and did it in a humble and non-obvious way. Really an awesome role model in delight, service, humility, and leadership. Oh yeah, there was no way to go to dinner with him without having Thai food. He later lived with my parents when he came back to the U.S. to go to law school. I'll also say he was shameless about having fun and enjoying life. Who else goes around as, you know, a serious professional in a huge sombrero, giggling and loving life and taking his lead on Valentine's Day in a huge whoosh of global love energy? Well done.
Thank you, Deb. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? On Zoom, anybody?
It's so difficult. When you think of Dan, you think of this person who just shared great happiness all the time. You entered a room, and the room sort of glowed because he always had a smile on his face, and he always looked you in the eye, and he greeted you with just this loving heart. I think I remember most of the chamber. He was always promoting different groups that he was involved in, whether it was getting people to volunteer for the Festival of Lights, or being involved in UCR, which he was very involved in, or turning the corner off of University into the parking lot and seeing Dan there with his chamber sign motioning you on where to go. I mean, when I think of Dan's being, I just think someone who was so rooted in the community and just really cared for everyone. He didn't have to know you. He just cared about you because you're a human being on this earth. And when I think of the times that we're in right now, we all have to think of Dan. We all have to think about being kind to one another, about being generous. And it doesn't mean just monetarily. It means also just smiling when you see someone. You don't know what their day is like. You don't know what their life is like. And I really have to give just incredible thanks for Marcia being by his side the past few years. I don't know of anyone, I truly don't. I don't know of anyone who could have been the supportful person that you were, Marcia. When I visited the hospital, Marcia took loving control of everything that went on in that room. She made sure that he was comfortable in every single way. She studied what needed to be done to take care of him, and she shared that information constantly with the doctors. Now, did they appreciate it? Probably not. But was she right? Yes. So, Marcia, I hope that every spouse in this room can be as strong and loving and nurturing as you were. And I hope that everyone in this room is blessed by the memory of Dan and will take a little bit of his soul into each of us, and it will help us get by in this world. God bless, Dan.
Actually, Colette, there is a beautiful, I heard a beautiful interpretation of, Moses. We don't know where Moses was buried. And one of the interpretations is that he's within all of us. So that's a beautiful thought about Dan being inside all of us. Anybody else? So El Male Rachamim is a prayer where we hope that and pray that Dan's soul will rest with God. Cantor Bob is going to sing it, and I will then read a translation. And we rise if we're able.
By the way, those were very beautiful words spoken by friends and relatives. When I think of Dan, having lived here almost 50 years, my sense is if there were an award or presentation, I would name Dan Mr. Riverside. El Mole Rachamim. El Mole Rachamim, Shochen Bameromim, Hamatzeh Menucha Nechona, Hamatzeh Menucha Nechona, Tachat Kanafei HaShechina, Bemalot Kedoshim Utorim, Kizoar Harakia Masirim, Et Nishamot Daniel ben Yaakov Shalach Lolomo Began Eden Temenuchato Adna Balarachamim Hastirehu Besedek Nafav Olamim Osra b'tzorech hayim et nishmato Adonai hu nachalato v'yanuchu b'shalom al mishkavo v'nomar, and we all say Amen.
God of abundant mercy, God most high, may the soul of our loved one who has gone into eternity find the gift of perfect peace in your embrace, together with the holy and the pure, whose light shines like the radiance of heaven. Compassionate God, hold him close to you forever, so that his soul may be bound up in the bond of life eternal. May he find a home with you, and may he rest in peace. And together we say, Amen. Please be seated for a moment. I am going to recite the Mourner's Kaddish, and I just want to say something about that prayer. The Mourner's Kaddish is actually a prayer that doesn't even mention death. It's really affirming life and affirming how Dan lives on inside of all of us through both memories and ways in which we try to live out the values that he taught us and acted on himself. It was originally a prayer that was just said after Torah study, and it's written in Aramaic. It's not even written in Hebrew. And it eventually made its way into the prayer book as a sort of way to separate different parts of the prayer service. And then in the medieval period, it became a prayer for those who've departed. And the story is that Rabbi Akiva, who's a very famous rabbi in our Talmud, was in a cemetery, and he saw this ghost going around working really, really hard and clearly very burdened. And Rabbi Akiva said, well, why are you working so hard? He said, well, I was a very bad man. I was a tax collector. I was really mean. And I got a woman pregnant. I don't even know if she had a son or a daughter. So Rabbi Akiva goes into town, finds the child. It's a son. He teaches him Torah. And when the son goes to a synagogue, it says something like the Kaddish, which we'll recite in a moment. The father's soul is let free and is able to go back to its source. And so that's sort of the way in which it finally became a prayer for those who've departed. It's really a praise of God in a lot of different synonyms. It's called a doxology. So we just say how great and wonderful God is. So if you can rise again, please. And if you know it, please join me. Yikadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah ve'alma divrach yehutei v'yamlich malchutei b'chayachon u'v'yomechon u'v'chayei dechol beit Yisrael ba'agala u'v'zman kariv v'imru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mevarach le'olam u'almei almaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh v'yithadar v'yitale v'yitalal shemei dekudashah b'richu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiran be'alma, v'imru, amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, v'imru, amen. May the source of peace send peace to all who mourn, and comfort to all who are bereaved, as together we say, amen. Please be seated. I'd like to read one final prayer. This is by Rabbi Zoe Klein, who is a rabbi in West Los Angeles. We say shalom and not goodbye, for shalom is goodbye and hello, and wholeness and peace, all threaded together in one breath. And in one breath, we too say goodbye to a hand to hold, a kiss and a tight embrace, and the same breath of shalom. In that same voice, we say hello to an ocean of memories and rush of emotion, gratitude and sorrow, tears and laughter, and trembling and fatigue, all in one breath. Colette Lee, who helped with the eulogy, who said beautiful words, also put together with her husband, Dr. Lee. He's surprised that he had anything to do with it, but happened to, as he slept. Put together some beautiful videos about Dan. We're going to show you one right now to end the service. And then after the service, we invite you for some coffee, some cookies, and we will show the other two videos as well. And so enjoy the video. If somebody wants to turn off those lights, I'm going to turn these off.
And the dreams that you dream of, dreams really do come true. Ooh, someday you wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you dare to, oh why can't well, I see trees of green and red roses too. I watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue, and I see clouds of white, and the brightness of day. I like the dark, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, singing, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry, and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind. Be where trouble melts like a lemon drops, high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow.
Before we scatter, I do want to thank a couple of people, Cantor Bob Sirotnik and Barbara Sirotnik, for your beautiful music. Thank you to the temple and to Ajahn for your beautiful chanting. And Jory Yarmoff is the person back there doing tech as always and playing guitar. So thank you so much, Jory, and thank you all for being here. And please enjoy the refreshments.
Star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the rainbow. Bluebirds fly, and the dream that you did to, oh why can't well, I see trees of green and red roses roses too. I'll watch them bloom for me and you, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Well, I see skies of blue and I see clouds of white and the brightness of day. I like the dark and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking and singing, how do you do? They really say, I love you. I hear babies cry and I watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll know, and I think to myself, what a wonderful world. Someday I wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where trouble melts like a lemon drops high above the chimney top. That's where